Start with the Vedic prayer. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramay, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukbhag bhavet. This is the prayer for everybody in the world, that everybody should be happy, everybody should be healthy, everybody should become good human being, and there should be no misery anywhere in the world. Now we discussed about mind management in our last session, and we came to different conclusions on various issues. We pinpointed that the entire process of mind starts with the thoughts, and thoughts become desires, and desire become will, and then will become action, and action becomes your life, and that is what you reap your harvest ultimately from. Now, I wanted to start today with two verses from Bhagavad Gita, which are very profound uh, in explaining this process once again. And then we will go to a verse from Katha Upanishad, and then we will go to the very practical steps how to manage the mind. The verses are from chapter 2nd, verse number 62 and 63. The 62 verse says that in him whose mind dwells on the objects of senses with absorbing interest, person has a lot of interest in certain objects of senses, attachment to them is formed. Then that is the foundation of attachment. From attachment arises desire. From desire, anger comes forth. If the desire is not fulfilled, the anger starts. The next verse is, that is 63. Anger leads to bewilderment. From bewilderment comes loss of memory. With loss of memory, the intelligence is destroyed, and by the destruction of intelligence, the person deviates from the right path. Now, this is a very scientific and psychological the explanation given how the mind works. Once again, we are going to the same principle which was also pronounced in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that if you keep contemplating on certain objects of senses, you develop attachment to those objects. The attachment turns into desires, and when desires are not fulfilled, you get angry. If they are fulfilled, then you become greedy. Then the anger actually destroys your thinking power, your memory. Because at the time of anger, you are not able to think properly and clearly. And that loss of memory leads to loss of your intelligence. Then you cannot take a right decision. That is what happens. And finally, because of the loss of intelligence, your action and your whatever steps you take, they are in the wrong direction. And that is where the what you call human being starts descending in an abyss. Then there is a very profound verse in Katha Upanishad, which actually compares a journey on a rath. It is like this, that the human body is like a chariot. The body is like a chariot, and soul is the master of that chariot. The intelligence we have is actually the charioteer, the person who is driving the chariot. And mind is the reins which is holding the horses in the front. The senses are the horses, and the area in front of the horses is the object of the senses, where the horses keep roaming around. So the area in front is the objects of the senses. The horses are the senses. The rein controlling the horses is the mind, The charioteer is the person who is driving the chariot. The intelligence is the charioteer, which is driving the chariot, and the soul, human soul, which is inside the body, is the owner of the chariot. Now, if you are able to control your horses, that is the senses, properly, through the use of your mind, that is the reins, and through your intellect, that is the charioteer, then you can perform your journey safely to your right destination. If you are not able to control your horses properly, then you go into an area which is completely can bring you down in your life. So this is what Katha Upanishad says, and this was what the Gita said. We already considered what Brihadaranyaka Upanishad said. So we have fully understood that mind has to be regulated. And how do we regulate the mind? Now we come to very specific points one by one. The first point we have to understand is that we must take the destiny in our own hands. We must realize that we are the makers of our destiny. Nobody else from outside decides your destiny. That should be very clear to our mind. We are the maker or the destroyer of our own self. That is first point. Second point, that we must understand the power of thought. Everything starts with the thought. Good thoughts can lead you to the good path, and bad thoughts will lead you to the bad path. Because from the thought, the desires arise, from desire, the will, from will, the action. And therefore, we must understand the thinking process. In Sanskrit, it is called Chintan. Chintan is contemplation. If you keep contemplating about good things in life all the time, if you keep contemplating about happiness, if you keep contemplating how I can control my anger, how I can keep my desires under control, then slowly you will move in that direction automatically. Because a particular pathway is formed in the mind if you keep contemplating on a particular thing. But if you keep contemplating all the time on big shopping, or taking intoxications, or smoking, or sexual objects, then your thinking will go in that direction. The pathways will be formed in that direction. In modern science, there's a branch of neurology which is called neuroplasticity. Now this is exactly the same thing which has been explained in Vedas thousands of years back. When I was talking the other day, I mentioned that when the rain falls on the mountain, the water drops go in different directions, and the area where more and more water drops go, there's a sort of pathways formed, which can take a shape of a nala, and then subsequently a stream, and then a river. Similarly, this neuroplasticity tells the same thing, that if you keep contemplating about particular object all the time, then it forms a pathway in your mind, and then your thinking goes in that direction automatically, and then that will take your life in that direction. Therefore, it is extremely important that we understand the power of thought process, and it is best to regulate that thought process, because that is what you call, you will not allow the seed to be formed, or the seed is formed, it will be formed in the right way. A wrong seed is formed at this stage, then the life will move in the wrong direction. So this is the second important practical step, that we should keep checking our thought process. Whenever you have a few minutes of time, think in which direction my thought process is moving. Can I move it in the right direction? That is extremely important. The third very important point is that mind is never empty. It is all the time having thoughts in it cannot remain empty. That is the basic fact about mind. It cannot remain in vacuum. It's like the waves in the ocean which keep flowing one after another. There is no way you can stop the waves. Similarly, the mind keeps having these waves all the time. And therefore, you must have clear goal and mission in your life. You should not stand on the roundabout where you don't know which direction to take and you are circling all the time. In order to have a clarity of thought, you should decide what direction you want your life to take. For example, somebody in a student life decides to become a doctor. Now his thought process is clear. He will put his resources to learn medicine and to become a professional doctor. Somebody else decides to become a manager and he does, he puts his resources together to learn the courses of management. Now, this process is extremely important in every stage of life. Even at this stage of our life, we have to be very clear what direction we are seeking. And that direction will decide the pathways in which we move. If we are not able to take that direction, then we will stay on the roundabout and keep moving without any direction. This is a very worst case scenario, and that can lead you or to anybody in a situation of bewilderment. So I would suggest that we should think about or we should contemplate about the mission, the goal, the objective of what we want to do in our life at every stage. It should be reviewed periodically, but we should have a clarity of vision in front of us. The fourth point is that failures are inevitable. There is nobody who can only have success. This is the law of nature. The law of nature is like that every happiness comes with unhappiness, every success comes with failure, every you know praise comes with criticism. And therefore we must be ready for the failures. Whatever mission, whatever direction we decide, there will be failures and we should not be disappointed. We should actually take it in as a challenge and move forward. In fact, Ramdhari Shankar said in one of his very famous poems that "Kam thok thel leta nar jab पर्वत के जाते पांव उखड़ मानव जब जोर लगाता है पत्थर पानी बन जाता है गुण बड़े एक से एक प्रखर हैं छिपे मानवों के भीतर मेहंदी में जैसे लाली हो वर्तिका बीच उजियाली हो." But मेहंदी की लाली जब भी मिलती है when only we put it on under a lot of pressure and use two stones to crush it, then you get that lali of mehendi. Similarly, when you burn a candle, then only you get the light. Exactly in the same way, we have to be ready for the failures. We have to keep our strength together to face the challenges of life in the direction we have decided for our life. So this is the fourth point, that we should keep the strength of character. We should be ready for the failure. We should not be disappointed. This is very, very important because a lot of people, they put a goal in mind, they have a mission, and they move halfway and then they feel disappointed because the objective is not achieved. We must have heard a saying that either you finish the job or the job will finish you. So therefore, we must have that determination that we will continue to move in that direction despite all the hurdles. That is very important, practical step in our life for managing the mind. The fifth important point is to, if possible, we should take a role model. We should decide that this is the person or this is the situation, or this is the story which can guide my path in case of difficulty. And that role model always helps you. That gives you a practical guidance. Like when I was a child, I had one of my teachers who was my role model. He used to tell me certain things, and I liked those things, and I started learning from his stories, his lessons, and his thought process. And that is how you can move your life. And the role model you should select, uh, the person who should select should be in a similar circumstances. The circumstances of that person should match little bit with your own circumstances. They should not be completely alien to us, because the similar circumstances will make our path easier. So this is the next important step for managing the mind. And this is because we should not leave mind empty. Mind can never remain empty. And therefore, we have to decide all these steps, and we should review these steps periodically in our life. Things saturate, things, change, you discover new realities in life. And therefore, sometimes role model also change. Role model keep changing with the changing perspective of life. But you should try to have somebody who can be your role model. Then there's a very important point, which I would like to mention. When we take food, we try to make sure that our digestive system is good enough to digest that food. If there is some stone comes in the mouth, we don't take it in, we throw it out. Or if some bad piece of the food comes in your mouth, we throw it out. We know that this is going to cause damage to our digestive system. Exactly the same way, we should avoid toxic food for our mind. There's a lot of toxic food in today's world which can vitiate your mind, which can make your mind confused, which can make your mind absolutely turbulent. Now, that possibility becomes very clear when you look at internet today. All kinds of possible options you have on internet. They can confuse your mind, they can destroy your mind, and they can poison your mind. Therefore, we have to be selective. This is extremely important. Like we do not take poisonous food, like we do not take a stone from our mouth into stomach, same way we should avoid the toxic food to our brain, to our mind. That is a discretion which you exercise every moment of your life. Don't try to be highly emotional, because sometimes emotional things can create a situation where you are taking a lot of toxins to your mind. People get addicted slowly, and then one thing leads to another. I remember the circumstances of my own life. In the beginning, when you grow up and you reach a particular stage of your life, people keep telling you, okay, let us take drink, and then another drink, and fourth drink, and fifth drink. You have no what you call moderation, no limits, and then you can get drunk and you lose your senses. If this kind of situation happens repeatedly, then you get used to that particular way of life, and that becomes toxin of your mind. Therefore, it is very important to think. When I joined the diplomatic service, I decided that okay, I will take some drinks, but I should never exceed 1 or 2 packs of alcohol anytime in my life. And that is the decision everybody has to take. And sometimes you can take a decision that okay, I will not take this at all. Like I have taken a decision now, the last 3 4 years, that I will not take alcohol anymore. That is the decision you can change in your life depending on the circumstances. But The toxins must be avoided to the mind. Watching wrong movies, going to the wrong places, going to staying with wrong company can create toxins in your mind. And that is why in our Shastras, we always emphasize on the importance of the company you carry. The importance of the company is extremely important because if you go to a coal mine, even if you don't touch the coal at all, you will definitely gather some coal dust on your clothes. Similarly, if you go to a perfume shop, you may not touch any perfume at all, you may not buy anything from there, but still you will come out with some perfume on your clothes and your body. So similarly, if we get into a wrong direction, even if we don't use that path, we will definitely come out with some sort of impression from there, which can be a toxic factor for our mind. I would therefore suggest that we should avoid this in every stage of our life. And this is very important for the modern generation, for the younger generation, because everything possible is available on internet. So even for our children or our grandchildren, I think this is a factor which we should keep in mind. हम राजस्थानी में कहते हैं कि जिस रास्ते में जाना नहीं हो उस रास्ते का डायरेक्शन नहीं पूछना चाहिए. So हमें जब when we have decided an objective in mind, and if we don't want to go in a different direction, I think we should not even try to experience that. Sometimes people feel, oh, why not? Let's experience for a little while and then we will give up. No, but then what happens is that after experiencing once, you want to experience it again and then again and then again, and then it becomes your habit. And then once habit is formed, it's extremely difficult to get rid of it. You can ask any smoker, any alcoholic person that it is extremely difficult to get out of those habits. And therefore, don't even try to experience even for once the things which are not good and which are not the direction of your life. Then the next point, the seventh point, is positive thinking. My teachers always taught me that you should always look glass half filled, not half empty. Because from half filled, you can go up and fill more and more and more. From the half empty, the meaning is the same, but that actually goes down and down, and you are looking the glass completely empty. This is extremely important in life if we want to improve our steps further and further. There are a lot of people who always think negative. Their way of saying is negative. Like if you go to an audience, in an audience, you will always find the people who are not giving attention. There are people who are giving attention to you. And you go and shout on them that please close your cell phones and give attention to me. Then that would be a negative thought process. And you go and tell them very nicely, oh, some of you are doing your attention is great and you are absorbing what I'm saying very positively, very nicely. I think the others who are not in that category will also emulate that example. And therefore we should use the positive language in every sense of our life, with our family, with our friends, with our own self. Even if we are lacking in a lot of things, we should say, okay, I at least have something. I can move forward from there. I'm not hungry. I'm not sitting on the road. I have a proper place to live in. I may not be a millionaire. I may not be a billionaire, but I have a very comfortable life. Look at the others who are sleeping on the roads and who don't have enough to eat. So I'm much better off. I think that is the way one should think. That is the way one should always mold one's thought process, and then you can move forward easily. If you move in the negative direction, then you will move what you call downwards, that is adhogati. You will not go in the upward direction, urdhgami. So this is another very important point. Now, one very extremely important point, which I have kept it, for the for one of the last points to think about, is that apart from these external elements which we have talked about today, there is an internal element in our body system itself, in our body constitution itself, that can allow us to manage the mind, and that is our intellect. When we were talking about the layers of the body, I mentioned that we have the big body, which is the gross part, which is the weakest. Then we have the senses, which are controlling the body, though they are smaller, but they are more powerful than the big, large body. And the mind, which is not even visible, not even sensible, is actually controlling the senses and the body both. It is more powerful. And beyond mind is our intellect. We talked about the qualities of intellect, the quality of discrimination, the quality of analysis, the quality which allows you to discern what is good and what is bad. Now that quality must be put to use every time. We must sharpen our intellectual ability. We must sharpen our reasoning, because that reasoning allows us to understand what is good, what is bad, what is legal, what is illegal, what is ethical, what is unethical, what is moral, what is not moral, what is good for me in a practical sense, what will make my life comfortable, easier, and happy in the future. Now, that decision one can take through the intellect. And therefore, we must sharpen our intellect as and when we can. And in order to sharpen the intellect, we have to keep anger away. We have to keep greed away, because those things, when they disturb our uh, intellectual process, then we lose the objectivity of our thinking. The objective decision cannot come from the intellect if we are emotional, if we are greedy, if we are angry. And therefore, those things we keep aside and we sharpen our intellect every time. We have to keep that in mind, that intellect is a continuous process. And we have to keep telling our mind that this is not good for me, this thought should not come to me, and this particular sense, attraction, attachment is not in my interest, and therefore we can discard them. There's a process in the mind you can do, that this thought is not good, put it in a dustbin. This thought is good, keep it in the mind. If you do it mentally, slowly, slowly your negative thought processes will go away. You keep them in the dustbin and throw it away. Every day, this will gradually lead to a stage where you would realize that you are reaching more and more what you call clarity, and more purity in your life. Now, anything which is divine, which is pure, which will take you upwards, which will expand your heart, which will expand your ideas, which will make you feel happier. Anything which is negative, anything which is not good, it will contract your heart. It will make you feel bad inside. Even a thief does not want to be told that he's a thief. Even he wants to be told that he's a good person. So every good idea will expand you, will make you happier. And that is the test we should apply when we are judging what is good and what is not good. If we take that judgment properly in a right direction, then I think we can do a great service to ourselves. So keep your intellect all the time sharp. Don't allow it to be clouded. It's like a mirror. When there's a dust on the mirror, you cannot see your face properly. If the mirror is clean, you see your face absolutely clear and proper. So don't allow the intellect to be, covered with dust and clouds. And those dust and clouds come from your anger, your greed, your emotions. So keep them away. So this is very important method to keep your mind under balance, under control. And this, the one more point which I would like to, explain today in this process before I conclude, that is the mechanical process in which our sense organs get involved. Anything which forms a habit, it becomes mechanical, and then even without, our thinking process, even without our mind telling or our intellect telling, that habit comes back to us automatically. I gave the example of a smoker. If he keeps smoking, every 1 hour, after every 1 hour, this will alarm will set in his mind that it's time to smoke. That is the mechanical habit. So we should not form that habit. So these are the 7, 8 points where we can manage our mind in a very clear and focused way. Let me repeat them one by one. Firstly, take your destiny in your hands. You are the decider of your destiny. You can make it and you can destroy it. Secondly, we must understand the power of thought process. Everything begins with that thought, which is not visible, but then it leads to the final action and leads to formation and destruction of the life. Thirdly, we must set our goals in mind, because mind is not empty. It can never be empty. It will always have waves inside, and therefore, if you have a goal set for yourself, then those waves will go in that direction. If you don't have a particular goal, then the mind will keep, circling around the roundabout, and you will not know what to do. So we should avoid that situation, and we should focus on our mission and our goal. Then we should always be ready for the failures. Failures is part of life. We will always experience them. Everybody, the greatest success stories start with failure. And therefore, we should be ready for that. We should not lose our faith. We should not lose our character. We should have the strength of our character. If possible, we should have a role model who can be, our focus point in the time of crisis, and he can guide our path. So that is very, very important. Then don't try to poison the mind through wrong ideas, wrong, inputs. Try to avoid wrong things on the internet. Try to avoid wrong things in the real life. Keep company of the good people, so that your thought process is right, go in right direction, and the toxins do not cloud your mind. Then, of course, I mentioned about positive thinking and the intellect, which I explained that it is one of the very important instruments available at our disposal to regulate our mind. So I think I would conclude this mind management session with these practical ideas today. And I'm ready actually for any questions if you have on this session and the last session. Thank you very much.